Welcome to the Southeast Retirement Planners Podcast, where we will go beyond the balance sheet with our guests, not only to share from our personal experience as financial advisors of over 25 plus years, but also to learn from our guests about the issues and topics that are important to them. Our firm specializes in taking care of the financial plans for individuals and small businesses by helping our clients identify their individual goals and taking a conservative and ongoing approach to helping accomplish them. We are located in Hickory, North Carolina, and look forward to continuing to serve our clients and our community. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you for joining us again. I'm Bob Fincher with Southeast Retirement Planners, and this is the SRP podcast. And today our guest is Charity Hand, who is the operator and manager and person in charge of the Hospice Resale Shop. And that's a part of Carolina Caring Hospice and Palliative Care here in our area. And just a really unique part of our community and something that a lot of people, I'm sure, engage with on a regular basis. And so we just wanted to kind of find out a little bit more about that. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, so we were talking a little bit ago, and you said, I wasn't really sure why you asked me to be on here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I think it's kind of interesting, all the things that you do and what your shop does and all that. And you said, you only is that interesting at times.
Well, I think it is, but I'm just surprised other people see that, so.
Well, I think it's easy to see that. I mean, there's this idea of thrifting and just kind of what that can be. A lot of people get into that or whatever, but the purpose behind it with Carolina Caring being sort of the focus and sort of the beneficiary of this particular enterprise, I think that kind of changes the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you think?
I agree. So yeah, I'll be happy to talk about it.
How long have you been in charge of Carolina Caring or Hospice Resale Shop?
I was hired as a manager. I just celebrated my 4th year.
Okay.
So July of 2019. So it's been 4 years, and we have changed and grown, and I've just been riding the wave for 4 years, it feels like.
How did this come about? I mean, you've done a number of things before this, and nothing although this has always kind of been, this kind of thing has always sort of been a passion of yours, right? I
kind of think a hobby that I had kind of worked its way into becoming a job. So my husband, Tommy, and I, just for fun, in the afternoons or the evenings or on weekends, we would just go out to antique shops and just thrift stores. And then it turned into, I came across a pair. The first thing I ever came across that I wanted to resell was a pair of alligator shoes. They were alligator leather. They were green, or crocodile even, I think. So they had a pattern, the stamp and everything. It looked like crocodile that you would wear on your feet. Yeah. And I said, there's probably somebody on eBay that wants to buy those. So
and you found them at a
local thrift store somewhere in Hickory.
Yeah.
I think they were $10, which is kind of expensive for a thrift store. So I went ahead and grabbed them and put them on eBay. And I want to say we sold them for about $200. So that started my eBay adventure. And after that, Tommy, my husband, and I, we just, would go to thrift stores, find things that look like there might be somebody out there looking for. And we started a small kind of eBay hobby type business. And then word got out to Christina McNally, who was the director of the foundation with Hospice, and she was looking for a new manager for the resale shop, and she knew that they needed another way to make income. And so she found out that I was out there doing that, and we had a mutual friend, Autumn, your wife, and it just kind of turned into something I wasn't looking for, but it worked out that I became the manager there. I was hired as a manager. We started an eBay business for the resale shop, and it just generated more income for the store in other ways besides foot traffic.
Yeah, besides just the actual retail side of it.
Yeah, and it was really helpful, especially whenever I first came on as a manager, because we had just moved to our location in Viewmont.
Yeah, and so that location is on 127, kind of across from Starbucks, sort of tucked behind White's Cleaners.
Behind White's Cleaners, it's 51 14th Avenue Northeast. We share the building with Hickory Fireplace and Patio.
Right.
But we were brand new. When I first walked in, it was the day of our ribbon cutting with the chamber. And Christina handed me the scissors and said, "You're cutting the ribbon." And I was like, "This is my first day on the job." She said, "It's okay. This is going to be your thing. So I want you to cut the ribbon." So that was my first day.
If we back up, how eBay, like a lot of things, I think can be, I don't know, scary is not the right word, but it can be complicated. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what's of value out there. So to get into sort of a niche, and we all have seen stories of people who've just been able to somehow make millions of dollars on eBay or whatever through a variety of things. And I feel like those people are sort of outliers, but most people engage just little bits at a time. How did that become something that you got, I guess, good at?
I don't know. I think it was luck at first. I just happened across a pair of shoes that looked nice, and I didn't know anything about alligator shoes, but I pulled out my phone, pulled up eBay to see if there were any being sold, and there were. So I just grabbed them. I said, "This is worth a $10 gamble, in my opinion, even if I just get my $10 back." So I think that's kind of how you get started. If with thrifting, you can buy something inexpensively, and even if you make, $20, you've probably doubled your money, which is a pretty good odd there. So
we call that an internal rate of return.
Rate of return,
right?
Yeah,
right.
That's even better.
Which 100% rate of return, pretty good. I mean, at Southeast Retirement Planners, we do a really good job, but we can't really guarantee 100% rate of return.
Yeah.
So.
And you just kind of develop an eye once you.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I remember some conversation with either you or Tommy, but I feel like it was the item was a bicycle jersey, like a shirt that cyclists wear or something like that.
Yeah,
and I remember
probably.
Tommy saying something like you were saying that these are really popular right now and you happen to find some in a particular thrift store somewhere. And so you were able to buy them for $2 and sell them for $40 or whatever, something like that.
Yeah. So, and that's how it is. Like I'm not a road biker, but I knew that there were people out there that were, and that's an expensive hobby. So there's people looking for those jerseys, and they like them, and so that was another thing that we would find. But here's the thing: like, there's things that come into our shop that somebody in Hickory is not looking for. But there might be somebody as far away as Australia that's looking on the internet, and they come across it on eBay, and we ship it all the way to Australia. So,
have you done that? Have you shipped to Australia?
We've shipped to just about every country.
Really?
At least, yes.
So give me an example of something that, well, I guess back up. So the way people engage, it's like many of the other organizations that we have in town, whether it's like Goodwill or Salvation Army or Safe Harbor has their resale place as well. So, the donations, they're all donations. Yes. And then at some point you're able to either put them back in your store, sell them online, Facebook or eBay or whatever. And then generally the profits or the proceeds of that go towards helping the cause with Carolina Caring.
So, the every profit, once we pay our rent, make payroll, goes directly into a fund that serves patients in hospice care. And that's not just adults, it's children in our Carolina, in our Cardinal Kids program, which is a newer program, but there is a great need for a program like what we offer for children with serious illness, whether it's an injury or they're born with something or they developed a serious illness. So that's a newer program we've started, but for example, some of the money that we raise goes towards Christmas shopping for those children. It might be their last Christmas. So for the past, I want to say 2 to 3 years, they've done a kind of a shopping spree. The kids have all given them a Christmas list, and even their siblings as well have also gotten gifts from the money that we've raised just to kind of help out. We just the parents might have 2 more Christmases, they might have 20 more Christmases, but as far as we know, they're seriously ill, and we just want to help make the most of it. So that's part of what we do. That's part of what our money that we raise goes towards. And it can be something as simple as an in-home care patient that, let's say, their air conditioning has gone out. The money has also gone towards putting a window unit in their home so they're comfortable. So it's not just paying for medical care, but if there is a patient that has no means of paying for medical care, it also comes from that fund as well. So it's basically just general care, or just to kind of make their life easier during that transition for themselves and for their families. So I'm really proud of what we raised that money for.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, so it's...
Well, you mentioned kind of after payroll, I guess, this isn't just... It is a nonprofit, but it isn't just a for fun exercise. I mean, you're responsible for running it as a business.
Yes.
So how many employees do you have at that shop?
Currently there are 5 employees, aside from myself. So I have somebody that drives the truck and does pickups, and then I have sales associates to keep the store operating, even if I'm not there for, right now I have 2 people there helping to run the shop.
Right.
So I do have that staff, so 6 total, including myself, numerous volunteers. I want to say we have about 25 volunteers currently active. And they do everything from sorting clothes, putting clothing out. I have a dedicated eBay volunteer. And I do have a volunteer that helps do pickups. So
for people that don't know, you guys, if someone maybe is in a situation where they're downsizing or they're moving or they have a family member that may have passed or something like that, and they want to make a donation, but they may not have the means to get a moving truck or a trailer or whatever, there are some things that you guys are willing to just go ahead and organize, schedule a pickup, right?
Yes, if they'd like to donate pieces of furniture to us, whether they're moving, whether they just replace something. We do have a pickup service. Currently, we're booked out about a week or 2, but we try to work people in, and we're always happy to pick up larger furniture items.
And people probably also don't know that it's really easy to volunteer there. You're always in need of some extra hands to do something, right? I mean, we've had our kids over there volunteer. I know your kids are required to volunteer there pretty regularly. So.
Yeah, they help out whenever they're in town or whenever they can. We have a volunteer. Well, she just graduated from high school, and we have a new one coming on board. 14 and older is a qualification to becoming a volunteer. And so right now we're in the process of getting the new one on board. And we've had a few students with Beta Club hour needs that I've been able to help them earn those hours. And just there's always something somebody can do in our shop. The volunteer who helps us with eBay, she has mobility issues, so it's not easy for her to stay on her feet for hours at a time, which is not a requirement, but it happens with our volunteers. They're moving around, they're putting things out on the floor, and it was just the perfect scenario because she knew how to do online sales, so it worked out that we could use her in that capacity. And when volunteers come to serve in the shop, one of the first questions I ask them is, do you collect anything? What do you know much about antiques or clothing? So just to try to put them in an area that they are knowledgeable about, or that they might have fun and enjoy working with.
Oh, that's a good idea, right?
Yes. So we have a great group of volunteers, and they love what they do. So it makes it a really good environment for everybody. And they're working for free, so I have to make it fun for them.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess you would think at times that it would just be, stacking shelves or unboxing people's stuff or whatever, but there's also a need for being able to get plugged into the area of interest, I guess, to you. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, and they've formed some good friendships with each other. So it's a win-win when you.
So you came on right before COVID. How have you seen that business change since you've been there, and how has it changed since, I guess, if from sort of the corporate side of things with Carolina Caring, how has that shop been impacted them?
So I kind of feel like I had a blank slate when I came in there. We had just moved into a new location. The store was bare. They had just emptied the other location. We moved from 321. That it had been there for about 9 years or so. So there wasn't much in there, and we were new to the neighborhood. And so donations trickled in. We had fewer members of staff. So we kind of grew as our needs grew, as far as needing more staff, getting more donations in the door. If you look at our numbers from 2019 to today, I want to say we're about 4 times larger, or our income has grown about 4 times as much as it was back then.
Wow.
So we're trying to find what we can do to make the most of what we get. When people give to us, it's not so we can just turn it around and get as little as we can to give back to the organization. They want us to make the most out of what they give us. So I feel like we need to be a good steward to those donations. So that's always been something I've tried to keep in mind. And that's, with the online sales.
Yeah. So how do you decide if somebody brings in a particular item? How do you decide whether you want to just put it in the shop, put it on eBay, or sometimes you share? I mean, you guys are really good with social media. You can follow the Hospice Resale Shop on Facebook and all that kind of stuff too. So sometimes you'll post items that show up there and then they get gone real quick.
They do.
Yeah.
So I think when anything comes in, do we have a whole bunch of this one item? Are we having a hard time selling this? You get a feel for what sits for a long time, what's an item that people really like. I follow a lot of accounts on Instagram that thrifting accounts, and people who are into certain trends, like like mid-century modern. Now 80s modern's kind of becoming a trend, cottage core. So I try to follow different influencers, I guess you would say, just to see what they're looking for, to see what everyone else might be looking for as well. So if it's something that comes in that I know I can sell easily in the shop, I will put it on Facebook or Instagram, put it on both Facebook and Instagram, actually. And my goal there is to try to make the phone ring, to try to get somebody to call and buy it over the phone so we can sell it, make room in the shop for more stuff, because it just comes in constantly.
So are you at capacity in terms of the amount of stuff that you get, the amount of donations that you get?
We're pretty full.
Okay.
But what
happens to the stuff that doesn't sell? Like how often do people bring just janky, broken, whatever stuff, and they're just like trying to make themselves feel better by dropping it off with you?
Thankfully, it's not extremely a common occurrence. I mean, it happens when we get things that need a little repair, and we'll try to fix what we can. For the most part, my goal is to get something for it. So if it's a piece of furniture that needs a little bit of touch up, or has, it needs a couple new screws put in it, we'll repair it and just try to get something for it. Or I'll just make it cheap enough that someone else can take it home and repair it.
Okay.
Because that's also a thing that people are doing, is buying old furniture, painting it, flipping it, fixing it up themselves.
Yeah, if it's in really bad shape, you're not going to spend a lot of time fixing it up. You'll let somebody else do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Let them do the labor. So I don't, have to have a volunteer spending their time with it, but so it does happen. But I'm grateful for every donation that comes in. We don't turn away donations unless it's for like items that we just can't sell. Like we can't sell used mattresses or bed pillows, things like that. But there's always a reason for somebody to bring us their donations, and we just never know if it's a grieving husband whose wife just passed, So,
Sure.
And we've seen that. So I'm always trying to be cognizant of that. Just knowing we don't know the story from what comes in. It could be somebody's cleaning out a room, or about to go to college and they're, getting rid of stuff. Or it could be that they're cleaning out their wife's closet. And I've seen that before. I've actually, I'll never forget it either. There was a man, and he was giving his wife's clothes to us, and they were all still on hangers. And so I just tell my volunteers and my staff to handle everything as if it's your own stuff. Mm-hmm. And he watched us carry all of the clothes in. He had a carload of things. And he said his wife passed away a year before that. So he'd been holding on to it for a year. And after we carried it all in and set it into the area where we process clothing, he stood there with his hands in his pockets and looked at the donation one more time. And then he walked away. So that was part of his process of grieving. And it was the closure, kind of part of the closure of the grieving process, to give her final things to hospice. So,
do you know if she was under hospice care in that particular instance? Or I'm sure you've had that happen before. Where
yes.
Because that's a really, what a strong ministry and service to our community, but that leaves a lasting impact for sure, anyone who's had that experience.
Yeah, and I don't remember in his case, but I would probably safely assume so, whether it was through Carolina Caring's hospice services or any other hospice. I know people have a strong connection. Anytime we've served a family member, if they've had an experience with hospice, we hear it all the time, but they talk about how good we were to them, how good our staff was, because it's a calling. It's not a job, it's a calling for a lot of our nurses and CNAs. So they connect with their patients, and it's that's a time of your life that when you experience it, it stays with you. And so they're loyal, and they continue to give to hospice by giving to us as they're cleaning out, or when they're moving, or so.
Sure.
We have a lot of loyal donors just because they've experienced that service.
Yeah, it's life-changing.
It is.
For the family members that get to be a part of that. We've had to go through that ourselves as well. So what are some of like I don't want to say like the best donations you've ever, but like, have you ever been surprised by something that was really valuable?
Well,
or some of the work. I'm sure you get bad donations that you just kind of have to put in the garbage, I'm sure. But
well, and we try to do everything. We try to do something with everything. And I don't think I finished your other question. If there's something that we cannot put in the store, like let's say we have no more room for clothing, and we had to purge and pull the items back in, or they're items that we just can't sell, we bag them up and they go overseas to third world countries. There's a company, I think they're based out of Statesville, and they pay us by the pound. So any clothing donations, whether we sell it off the rack or we ship it overseas, it gives to hospice in some form. So,
oh, wow, okay.
So, and it's not just clothing, it's shoes, it's handbags, it's toys, anything that we call it soft goods, we can sell. Kitchen items, we can still be paid by the pound. I had an artist call me yesterday, actually, and she asked if we had any glass. And she had been reaching out to all glass and tempered glass tops for tables. Like, if you don't have the base for that table anymore, the glass is pretty much useless. I've tried to call all glass and ask if they'll help, recycle it or something, and they said there's really nothing to do with it. So there was an artist that called yesterday and asked if we had any tempered glass, and I said, of course, please come. And
so you're talking about a piece of furniture that had a glass top on it, that maybe the piece of furniture is damaged, or
we just got the top.
Yeah, or you just ended up with because somebody else threw away the base or whatever. Yeah. Okay. So you had someone call looking for just that, one thing that you can't do anything with.
Right. So I was happy to tell her. I just told her, come and make a donation, and we'll be happy to
load it up for you.
Yeah. So there's just a use for everything. We sell broken pieces of jewelry in bags, and I think people make other pieces of jewelry with
Lots of books too.
Books. And we even will allow anybody. You can come in. It's a bag of books. I don't care what size bag you get, whether it's an IKEA bag or just a regular paper grocery bag, but you can fill that bag up for $5. And it's a great resource for teachers that might want to fill up their student library in their classroom, or if you just want to decorate with some books. So that's one way we try to keep books moving.
Idea. Yeah.
There aren't a lot of places that accept books anymore. So I think we get the majority of the books that people in Hickory don't want right now. But so there's that. And we just try to make every donation count in some way. So really, we don't throw very much away, at least in my opinion. We don't have a huge dumpster.
Okay.
But
I would have thought that would be kind of where some percentage of it ended up. Maybe not as much as I would have thought, I guess. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we have a guy that comes and takes our metal to recycle it.
And you've got some of your volunteers are people that can fix stuff, and they like to tinker around. And if you're missing wires or on something, or I think I remember seeing like a fountain or something that maybe wasn't quite working right, and they fix that and put it back on the floor or whatever.
Yeah. So we just make it cheap enough that somebody can see it and realize I can just go to Lowe's or on Amazon and get the cords for it. And
so when
get it
you
working
put some
again.
of these things that you think have an audience, not necessarily in your shop and locally, but when they go to eBay, have you turned like a really big profit on something that surprised you?
We sold, it was the sister ship to the Titanic. I cannot remember the name of the ship, but
Are you making this up?
no, I'm not.
Okay. I feel like this isn't true.
I could probably make up some good stories. We had, actually she worked for us, and her father collected egg cups.
Okay.
And there was an egg cup that she gave us from her dad's estate, and it was in that Starline cruise. I can't remember the name of it, but either way, it was the Titanic sister ship, and this egg cup came off of that. And we put it on eBay. We had no idea. We had some egg cups that we couldn't sell for 50 cents, and so I said, well, let's just put this on eBay and see what happens. It sold for $600 and some. It was like mid $600 range for a tiny egg cup. And I think we started the bids at $20.
You're kidding.
No. So that was one. I believe we sold a set of silver plate, flatware. I think that was $1,000 sale online. So those are two that stand out for me. And the rest of them are just general items that go for like $50 range, maybe $50 to $100. But those were a couple good ones.
Those are good ones. Well, I consider you, in a way, a business owner, because this is kind of your baby, right? I mean, you're in charge of keeping up with all the things that are operationally, all the things that are going on there. So what are some of the challenges you've had, I guess, from a leadership standpoint or managerially, how much do you communicate with your team about how good a job they're doing and that sort of thing? Like, do you have goals that you've set, and do you share those with your team?
So I think we just have an open line of communication. So every day I tell them how much the store has done, what we'd like to do by the end of the month, what our daily goal is. And so they're on board because they've watched the store grow with me. Two of my employees have been there for about 3 years. So they've been a part of the growth just as much as I have, I'd like to say. They help price things. They help pull things to the side that might need a closer look. They help me point out things for our social media posts. So I think they're invested in it just the same way that I am. What was the other part of the question?
Well, just how you kind of lead that team, but sharing all those sort of data points and that kind of thing really helps people buy into being on a common mission and wanting to accomplish those goals together. I think that really makes a big difference, particularly when you're also mixing sort of paid staff along with volunteers, and then dealing with the public, and then dealing with the public in a pretty unique way. I mean, the story that you told about the guy bringing his wife's clothes, you have to treat that differently than somebody just dropping their junk off, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a whole different approach.
And they see it too. One of my employees is retired at EMS, and this is an easy job for him because he's not working the 12-hour days anymore.
Right.
So he also has seen the illness side of things too, and that makes it really easy to work with. It makes it really easy to work with him because he's actually seen more than I have. His wife was a hospice nurse too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's great. I'm in a really lucky spot, I think, to have employees that share in the mission and that have lived the mission the way he has. And it's just, there's really not a lot of training that's involved whenever people, it's not a job, it's a mission. And so that totally changes the way that I have to work with employees and run the shop. So.
Well, and what an opportunity for people who have been touched by hospice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you, obviously you can donate and you can give to the organization as a whole if you wanted to support it. You can also volunteer with Carolina Caring in a number of different ways, but that may not be your thing. Mm-hmm. Like that could be really scary for a lot of people, even though they may have had an experience that they want to give back and they want to support it. But now this is a way that they can still really impact Carolina Caring overall, but do it in, I don't know, just maybe a more, in a retail environment kind of, where they can sort of get their hands dirty and do some positive work, but also impact the mission that way.
Yeah. And it's a good place to work, especially if you're retired or semi-retired, because we're still active and you're still in the community and you're still serving and making connections with people. So it's kind of like a win-win. I say all the time when people ask me how my job's going, it doesn't feel like work. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, yeah, I go in and the day escapes me because there's just stuff coming in all the time. There's stuff going out all the time. There's people everywhere, but it's a whirlwind and it's actually fun. It's rewarding. And I know everyone in that building feels the same. So it's almost, it's ideal, you know. Yeah. And I've worked other places where you sit at a desk all day and you clock out for your hour lunch and then you come back, and there's days when I come in and I'm like, oh, I didn't eat lunch today, but that's okay because I stayed busy and just forgot to eat lunch. So it's a completely different environment. I didn't think when I was in college that I would be managing a thrift store and be happy about that. Like you don't think that. So I feel like I'm in a good spot, and I'm just trying to do everything that I can to take people's donations and be a good steward to what they give us by making the greatest profit on what they do, what they give us, because it's not going to, to pay for a summer home for our CEO. It's actually going into a fund that serves people. Yeah. So I feel like that's my duty to make sure that we're doing the most that we can with everything.
Well, as a community, we have this as a resource. I'm sure that people know they can bring donations by, and now hopefully they know you guys are willing to help pick up certain things. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about how they can invest in what it is that you're doing with the resale shop?
Sure. Even if you don't have a donation or if you don't shop with us, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, like our posts, share our posts. Just that's a great way to support us. If you know somebody that is needing support through Carolina Caring, share the information about Carolina Caring. Support Cardinal Kids. Support our Pet Peace of Mind program by purchasing a calendar. We do a calendar every year with it's a Cutest Pet Contest,
Okay.
and they sell the calendar, and that supports the program. And Pet Peace of Mind is actually out there to help hospice patients, like if they need to put their dog in a kennel for a couple days. There's that fund supports that. It supports dog food. It supports anything that a hospice patient might need to help care for their pets. So that's a great and easy way. It's just buy a Pet Peace of Mind calendar. I know our Cardinal Kids program, we just worked with some local artists, and they made some holiday cards, and they're beautiful artwork of cardinals. And there's
Okay.
several to choose from. And the holiday cards are going to become available through our foundation page. So that's another way to support us, or just in general, just give to our fund through Carolina Caring. So there's a lot. And the next time you clean out your house and you have a couple things, even if it's just a bag or two, just bring it to us. We're open 10 to 4 during the week, and we take donations anytime during the day.
Okay.
So
That's fantastic. Well, before you go,
Okay.
first of all, thank you for taking time with me. We've known each other a long time.
yes, yeah.
So one thing that I like to talk about with anybody who comes on is kind of your own personal journey with your financial plans and things like that. And you have two kids in well,
One graduated.
one just graduated. So you had 2 kids in college,
yeah.
almost 3. So you got another one on the way to college soon, and then one in college and one just finishing college. And so you've been through kind of a couple of different seasons of parenting and financial questions, and
Yeah.
I'm sure bumps in the road. And you guys have had rental property and done some other things like that. And so what is one of the best financial decisions you've ever made, or the best pieces of financial advice you've ever been given?
Well, as you know, Tommy and I started early, having kids, getting married. I think one of the best things, we're not big planners, obviously, but it worked out that we grew into our needs rather than, jumping into a career. Tommy and I got married right out of college. I had Thompson right after college. So instead of jumping into a full-time job, I had him, and I worked part-time, but it was okay because I wasn't going from a full-time salary back into staying home with him. So we kind of had a little bit of slow growth in the beginning. We had just what we needed, and that was enough. So I think that was good for me to not have to pull away from a career to start a family. I started a family and then grew into my career.
Start slow.
Start slow.
Yeah. No, that's a great piece of advice. I mean, especially, and it's hard to communicate that now to young people. When your son just started kind of his new career out of school, and it's like he's going to all of a sudden have access to money that he didn't have before, and then he's going to feel the need to spend it like he hasn't before, and all that sort of stuff. And so the idea of how do we communicate starting slow is a really good message.
Yeah.
For sure. Have you ever made any like major financial blunders? Like one of the big financial mistakes you've made?
It's almost the same answer.
Oh, really?
I think, again, we started slow, but we started with a family. So not starting my career, not having a full-time job until 12 years after graduating from college at LR. I didn't start a 401k until then, and I could have had a lot of money saved up to that point, but I invested in my family early on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you'd call that a blunder, but that's probably something that I don't know if you'd call it suffered, because I wouldn't change a thing about it. But I didn't have a huge nest egg started when most people do by the time they, are in their mid to late 30s. So, but I guess that was the closest thing that I can think of.
That's really interesting. That is one of the more challenging things about the work that we do, is being able to try to communicate the balance between really what matters. And I've seen that kind of a situation happen certainly plenty of times, and I understand what you're saying. It's like, well, you could look at the balance sheet and say, well, if I had started socking away money and investing back when I was 22 versus investing in my family, then I would have X amount of dollars on my balance sheet. But you also were there in a period of time and in a season that you needed to be there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really, and we don't know what.
That you can't put a monetary value on that.
And we don't know when we're going to be able to actually spend that balance sheet,
Yeah.
right? We're not promised tomorrow. And so to find kind of some balance between what it is that we're doing now, we see this a lot really with people that are kind of our age right now, where they look at their parents' experience and they say, okay, well, my dad worked, 70 hours a week so that he could just save and save and save and sock away and sock away and sock away. And he's got a couple $1 million saved. And then he finally gets a chance to retire, and him and mom finally move to the beach. And then they're really unhappy, or then somebody gets sick, or somebody passes away suddenly, or whatever. And it's like all of a sudden you look back in these 20 or 30 years of grinding away for that someday in the future pile of money, it really didn't mean a whole lot. And so that's a challenging thing. I think that's what's so important about keeping communication lines open with clients and having a good team as your financial advisory team, so that you can have those conversations to say, what is most important right now?
Yeah.
Like, I want you to save and I want you to invest, and you need to plan for the future. But if you're not home, if you're missing ball games, if you never go on vacation, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to kind of navigate those financial seasons of your life either.
Yeah, that's a thin line to walk too.
It is, but you have to, and you'll be on one side of it or the other at different times for different reasons, but you do have to have some perspective to say, I'm really glad I did this way. I wish I could have done this differently, but here's where we are, and the journey's been a good one up to this point. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and like I said, I really wouldn't change anything. So,
well, you guys have an amazing family, great kids, so you're doing awesome.
Yeah,
one way or another, you're doing great. And the Hospice Resale Shop is doing great. So thank you for sharing some of that with me. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully it was helpful for people. So if you have any questions, you can certainly check out kind of our show notes, and please like and subscribe the Southeast Retirement Planners podcast. All of that stuff is on our website at seretirementplanners.com. And you can find all the information on the Hospice Resale Shop. Make sure you like and follow them on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff as well. So, thanks, Charity, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right,
bye. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA, SIPC. Southeast Retirement Planners is not affiliated with LPL Financial or registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor.